Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive on something really interesting, and I think you're going to like this one.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
We're talking morality.
Woo! Big topic.
Yeah, but we're adding like a kind of postmodern spin to it.
Right, exactly.
So we're looking at, probably a lot of our listeners are familiar with Kohlberg's stages of moral development.
Yeah, the sort of classic theory.
You climb the ladder and you reach the
top of moral reasoning, right?
Like that top level.
Pinnacle.
Yeah, like the peak.
Exactly.
But what happens when we kind of add postmodernism into the mix?
Yeah, it gets messy.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, it does. And so that's what we're going to be looking at today.
All right, well, let's...
And we've got a really cool source.
Yeah, we do.
I think it's really fascinating.
Very thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So let's set the stage first.
Okay.
And just kind of recap Kohlberg, because it's sort of the jumping off point for this whole discussion. His theory basically suggests that there's this like progression, right? Mm-hmm. It's like climbing a ladder of moral development.
Yeah.
And you start off, with very basic ideas of what's right and wrong.
Right.
It's all about punishment and reward at the beginning.
If I do this, something bad will happen, so I won't do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if I do this, I get a cookie.
Yeah.
So I'll do that.
Right.
And then as you kind of climb that ladder,
you get more sophisticated.
Yeah, you get more sophisticated. You reach these higher levels of like abstract, universal principles of what's right and wrong.
It's not just about me and what's going to happen to me. It's about these,
the greater good.
Yeah,
all of humanity, all those big concepts.
Exactly.
That's like.
But
So it's like one mountain, and we're all trying to get to the top.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, one path, one summit.
But what if it's not just one mountain?
Yeah, that's where postmodernism really throws a wrench in the works.
Yeah, because it challenges the whole idea of those big universal truths, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hold on a second, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
We need to think about diverse perspectives. We need to think about the influence of like power and language on how we even understand morality.
Right.
And so it's kind of like saying instead of having one mountain to climb, we've got this whole landscape with lots of different peaks.
And every peak is different.
Exactly. And those peaks represent, the many different ways that different cultures.
Different people,
experience and understand morality.
Yeah.
I mean, just as a quick example, the concept of justice, right?
Right.
Huge concept in moral philosophy.
Yeah.
But, in some cultures.
What does justice even mean?
Exactly. That's the question.
Yeah.
For some cultures, justice might be really about restoring harmony.
Not about punishment.
Not necessarily about punishment.
Interesting.
It's more about healing relationships that have been broken, making things right within a community, even if that means that the individual who did something wrong
doesn't go to jail or something.
Exactly. Might not face what we would consider, from our perspective, traditional legal consequences.
Right. Yeah, I love that example because it shows how you can have,
such different ways of thinking about it.
Yeah, different ways of thinking about it. And like Kohlberg's emphasis on, the individual reaching these abstract principles.
Yeah.
That might not work.
It might not resonate.
Yeah.
In a culture where...
Yeah, where morality is very much embedded in
the social.
In social practices.
Yeah.
In concrete ways of living and being together.
Right.
So, yeah, if we look at Kohlberg through this postmodern lens, it's like, well, maybe those higher stages, those aren't actually the universal summit of moral reasoning.
They're just one peak.
They're just one peak.
Yeah.
Among many.
That reflects, a
particular cultural perspective.
Yeah.
A Western individualistic perspective.
Yeah. So it really kind of shakes things up.
Yeah. It's making me think differently about morality, that's for sure.
And your own assumptions about right and wrong, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all very interesting.
But one thing I'm still kind of grappling with.
Yeah.
Is this whole idea of power dynamics and morality.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Yeah. It's like a little bit tricky for me to wrap my head around. Could you maybe unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a key point that postmodernism brings up, right?
Right.
It reminds us that power structures,
they have a huge influence.
They do. They have a huge influence on how we understand and apply even moral principles.
So it's not just about like pure reason then.
Right. It's not in this like vacuum, separate from everything else. And in fact, some critics of Kohlberg would say that, his emphasis on abstract reasoning.
Like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that unintentionally favors a particular way of thinking about ethics.
one that aligns more with like traditional Western male-oriented perspectives.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like even the way we talk about morality is already kind of wrapped up in these power dynamics.
So you're saying language has power too?
Precisely, yeah.
Wow.
Postmodernism, it really highlights this idea of discourse, which basically means that the way we talk about things actually shapes how we understand them.
Oh, I see.
It's not just neutral.
Yeah.
Language has this power to shape our perceptions of the world and our values.
Yeah.
Like, let's take that word justice again.
Yeah.
It evokes this sense of fairness, right?
Yeah, very well.
But like, what actually constitutes a just outcome?
Yeah.
Like, the specifics of that can vary widely.
Depending on where you grew up,
Cultural context, yeah.
your values.
Individual values.
Yeah.
So it's not this like fixed thing that everyone agrees on.
Yeah, like if I grow up in a culture that's all about like communal harmony, my idea of justice,
Might look very different.
very, very different.
Right.
Yeah.
From someone who's been raised in a more individualistic society.
Yeah, okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, where do we go from here?
Right. Because if morality is more fluid,
More context dependent.
then Kohlberg proposed.
Yeah.
What does that mean for us? Like you and me right now,
Right.
trying to navigate ethical dilemmas
In our own lives.
in our own lives.
With all this postmodern stuff swirling around.
Right?
Right? So instead of trying to find,
The single right answer.
yeah, which is what it kind of felt like before.
Right. Like that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Find that top of the mountain.
Yeah, it's more about recognizing that
There are many peaks
there are many peaks
out there.
and embracing
The complexity.
the complexity. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not to say that anything goes. It's not like moral relativism, where it's like, well, whatever you think is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. It's more about recognizing that our own ethical compass,
Which we all have.
we all have, yes,
is shaped by so many different factors.
a multitude of factors. Yeah, our cultural background,
Yeah.
personal experiences, even the language we use.
Yeah. Yeah. All this stuff we've been talking about.
Exactly.
So less about finding the answer and more about,
Understanding the forces that shape our own moral compass.
yeah.
Which brings us to a thought-provoking question for you, the listener.
This is the homework.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there are all these peaks on the moral landscape,
All these different ways of looking at things.
which ones are you drawn to?
Yeah.
And why?
Think about that.
Yeah, what experiences and values have shaped your own unique ethical compass?
I like that.
There you go.
All right. Well, we've got to wrap it up there, but thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
I hope you learned something and definitely think about that last question.
Absolutely. Very important.
Okay. We'll see you next time.
See you later.